All right, let's talk Min 1, Max 3 Theory. I want to take a look at every type of combination of tank, support, DPS, and find ways to make all of them work, at least on paper. In practice, balance is going to make it pretty hard to make some of those combinations work, but I want to just go in and see where can we create some compositions that might have a little bit of merit. I think it's pretty hard to tell, especially in quick play, which ones are going to work because people don't play quick play like they really need to play these comps. And speaking of that, I think the best place we can start here is talking about what are the differences, right? What do you need to do in 6v6 that are different from, 5v5, or what do we really need to keep in mind here? I think the biggest thing to me is that 6v6 in general, but especially when you start opening up the roles a little more, it becomes harder to get things done. You need to be a lot more decisive. You need to be a lot cleaner in your play, more together, right? I think with how the synergies in this game work and the combinations work, when you unlock more of them, you add the potential for really busted combinations. So in order to either break them or make them as effective as possible, you really do need to have a lot of good coordination and decision making within that space. That's why I think, I'm not going to talk my whole thoughts about this, but I think it's really hard to justify maybe the Min 1 Max 3 in particular in general ladder and ranked, because it does not play. It is very frustrating to play sometimes because I think a lot of people are on a different wavelength. Maybe it's just the Overwatch 2 brain. I'm not sure, but I think that's one of the biggest things here. Tanks are very good. It does not matter if it is 5v5 Overwatch 2 or nerfed down a little bit more. More tanks equals good. I think that is just a lesson that we did learn in Overwatch 1, and it still holds true today. Regardless of if it's old tank design or new tank design, I think it's all there. So let's just go ahead and start. I'm just going to start throwing random stuff up here, right? I'm going to visualize some of these comps for you. This is not a tier list. Don't freak out, right? So, the classic first combination, we're just going to do something very, very standard here. It's 2-2-2. We're not going to talk about 2-2-2 that much because, it's boring. We've all been there. But I think especially in context of the, the three, in the fact that there might be, you're going up against 3 tanks or 3 supports or something like that. What does a 2-2-2 composition need to be to make it as effective as possible? I think there's 2 things you can do here. Your classic main tank, off tank, flex support, main support, right? Just the very push and pull. I have brought you back to simpler times, right? This is a pretty classic late stage Overwatch 1 brawl comp. As I will rename, I like to call this one Cold because you're playing May and Cass, Cole Cassidy. So I like to call this Cold, but we had an old name for it. Basically what this is, it's just very, standard. You've got your main tank initiator, you have the off tank who's up there checking flanks and protecting the Reinhardt, enabling him to swing when he doesn't have shield. She can do the high grounds, Diva can, Lucio can support the Diva when you don't need to really move the team. If you need to rotate a lot, Lucio also comes in with that, with that good AoE support and everything. Baptiste, another AoE that he's the main healing output for the team. The team kind of plays mostly together, but Bap does not struggle that hard to hit the Diva when she goes and does her own thing. Cass can take very limited angles, but May is typically going to play with the Reinhardt, play with the front line, try and create an opportunity for Reinhardt or Diva to collapse. Cass is just putting in really good range damage pressure. Very standard, right? It's got everything you might want from a composition, and it's very, very well rounded. And I do think that if you want to compete with some of these other kind of wacky comps, if you're playing 2-2-2, you really do want a lot of this kind of stuff. But, we can talk about different types of compositions. What if we have double initiator? Now, don't take this as gospel. I'm just kind of throwing characters out here that I think are initiators, right? So if you throw this into the mix, Mauga Queen, well, when you're on double initiator, you don't have that kind of sustainability and the really good fortitude that a standard brawl composition has with like a diva. So I think a Lucio is obviously a very good option, but instead I would maybe swap it out for something a little more, you know, like a Kiriko who can get in there and play faster. You could play a Juno instead, something like that. And then I think Mei and Cass are probably a little too slow. Let's go for some of these like faster variants, you know, like Genji I think is a really good choice here. Sojourn, you know, that's just very Overwatch 2. Tracer, of course, you know, faster characters, DPS that keep up with that brawl. Keep it up, keep the tempo up, be fast, be aggressive. You know, you have no time to choose or wait. You know, if you see an opportunity, you must go on that opportunity. In fact, a lot of times you have to create those opportunities, right? Because I think with a lot of these comps with all these tanks, and it's really hard to try and find some squishy to catch out. When you find the opportunity, you need to put all your eggs in the basket. I think that's kind of what you can do here. And you're going to see that idea in some later comps down the way. So, with that being said, I think those are the two best ways that you can do 2-2-2. But 2-2-2, that's boring. This is snooze fest. We've been playing 2-2-2. We're in Min 1, Max 3. This is our time to shine. So, let's start. I think we're going to end. Actually, you know what? Let's start with tanks. Let's start with 3 tanks. So, what is the best thing that you can do for 3 tanks? Well, or I guess we'll start with 3 tanks to support. I think that's the best way to do it. So if I have, you know, I'll throw in a Hazard. I'll throw in where is he? Wrecking Ball. And then I'm going to throw in a Diva. I think that's probably, a pretty good, we'll say this for now. I've been playing with, you know, 3 tanks happens a lot because I think a lot of people understand that it's really, really good because these are, you know, bigger DPS, right? They can just get in, be much more aggressive. Again, they're very decisive because they don't have to worry so much about their health and their exact positioning and timing because there's 3 of them and they can just kind of go and think about it later, right? They can push the advantage, push the aggression. Obviously, they have to think about it because they're a little squishier compared to 5v5. But I think that when you have 3 tanks, you have 2 options depending on your backline or depending on the rest of your team, right? So here we are running 2 supports. Now this comp is pretty it's pretty fast, right? It's gonna want to dive. It's gonna want to dive quickly. So I think that you kind of don't want. How do I say this? In traditional tanking, you know, you want to have like the main tanks and the off tanks. But when you have 3 of them, in my opinion, it's actually hard to justify having 2 off tanks because the main tanks are going to be ping-ponging so many resources that the off tank is not going to be able to keep up a lot of the time. And in fact, the off tank may have trouble finding a lot of value over the course of the fight. Because their resources are limited. So in many ways, I think you may be better off playing yet another initiator in this position and really pushing your advantage, pushing go. You are not peeling. You are not doing that. You are just trying to be like, play the game of look at me now. No, look at me now. No, look at me now. And your supports are, during all this chaos, your DPS and your supports are trying to, what's it called? They're trying to capitalize off of that, right? So your Juno is looking to speed in her Genji. You know, Juno might not be the best example. It's not Kiri, right? Your Kiri is going to be looking for moments where she can find a cheeky headshot. Your Lucio is going to be trying to get one of your tanks around, maybe even with the DPS, right? Get the DPS in and out while they're causing chaos. They're causing all this big burst damage, stuff like that. I think that is one way that you can do it. If you've got these supports, right? If you've got supports, you can do that. Now, conversely, you can try what I was talking about earlier, where you do, instead of, you know, all initiators or 1 off tank, you do very classic, you know, you're gonna see shades of goats here, right? You throw in the Reinhardt, you throw in the Zarya, you throw in the Diva. Zarya and Diva play not to take the resources, right? They don't want to take all of them, because they need Reinhardt to be the kind of like the demon character, right? He's kind of like making everyone's lives miserable because he has so much resources pumped into him, right? Like, think about it this way. Reinhardt gets his shield, he shields in, he gets to you, his shield gets low. Zarya hits him with the bubble. Okay, he's swinging. Or actually, probably better example, D.Va hits him with the Matrix after his shield goes down. Okay, he gets to swing for 2 seconds. Matrix goes down, bubble comes up, he gets to swing again up to like 2 seconds, right? By that time, D.Va gets a little bit more Matrix. Okay, cool. Then you throw in the fact that you have, like, you know, Baptiste has got lamp, so that can extend Reinhardt's duration. By the time he's extended that duration, you might have Wall that can help you, or, you know, Wall can make, you know, more opportunities, but Wall could help save you, keep you in the fight, wall off the team, you know, or the other team, resource-wise. Then Zarya gets her bubble back, or D.Va gets her defense matrix back. In this whole time, you're trucking forward. There, you know what I mean? You have no reason to stop because you have so many resources, and you've got this big guy swinging at you with however much damage he does nowadays. Honestly, I can't even keep up with his swing damage anymore. So Reinhardt is going at you. He's really like pushing the aggression, and he is enabled by his team. So you're kind of playing a comp that is really set to enable this really big initiation, right, off of your main tank. Now, I think you can also do this with, you know, you could replace Reinhardt here with a Winston, and even keep this off tank line. I think they both work pretty well. And then you can just swap that DPS out with a Sombra or a Tracer, or I think Sombra is probably a pretty good option here. We'll keep that. You know, Baptiste doesn't need to be here. We can do Kiriko instead, or we'll do Classic. We'll do on a Brig, right? And just keep it going. Where is my Brigitte? I put Brig in there already. The Ana, right? So it's shades of classic comps, but I actually think that there is a lot more merit to them because, you know, yes, having DPS and that angle control is good, but like, is D.Va not a scarier Tracer in the angle department? It's hard, like, you can contest a Tracer because her health pool is so limited. Yes, she has better dueling potential in theory, but D.Va also has just so much health and so much raw damage too that she can do the same thing, and she's more vertical. Zarya, you know, is a very big backline protector, and with a Brig, you know, again, this is just double bubble fundamentals, but with a Brig, can really like be a fortification, where D.Va then can go help Winston too. So Zarya and D.Va are pushing, right? I feel like the push and pull is a lot more push in these 6v6 with these triple tanks, and I think that's something to keep in mind, right? There's a lot more of being able to hit W, especially with the support line, right? Obviously, you do need to take it not super fast all the time if you've got double supports, I think, because you have some room to kind of heal up and get your resources back. But there is a lot more of just going forward, getting ready, being a nuisance. Now, if we flip the script here, and we've got 3 tanks instead, that is where or not 3 tanks, 2 DPS, 3 tanks, 1 support. This is where things get really interesting. How does this work, right? Well, again, I think this goes into those, you know, complete train wreck compositions of the scariest characters that you can possibly think of. Again, we'll throw that Winston idea in here. I think this works better for this idea of just let's just go. You know what I mean? Let's just go super duper fast. Now, I think backline-wise, this is going to be tough. Like, listen, nobody in this game is going to be able to heal up this entire team composition. Now, certain characters are going to be able to get health packs. This is kind of how these compositions work. Like, Wrecking Ball and Hazard are going to be decent. Wrecking Ball, obviously, very good at rolling around getting health packs. Hazard will be decent at it. But you can't really do this ping-ponging like I was talking about, because when you ping-pong, you all take damage, and you have to, while one is taking damage, the other one has to heal up the resources. Well, with a composition like this, the healers are going to struggle to do that. So if you wanted to try to attempt that, I think Ana is a really good solution there. If you're trying to not go as fast as humanly possible, you have to set up or stage for a second or two, play Ana, because she'll be able to do that good single target healing that you'll need. These guys are, what's it called? They are self-sufficient enough. They'll be okay. You can just make sure your tank line is good. And then you just go, right? Maybe you take a second to stage, and that is where the Ana, I think, is really good. That is a little more in danger. She also has a little bit more peel, just in case they're playing something really aggressive towards you with her nade. But if you don't quite need it, if you think the map can allow you to go belligerent, especially if you have like a defense, I think Zen can work really, really well. Discord, and you've got 3 tanks and 2 DPS just diving on one person, that's the dream. That is actually exactly what you want. When you play a comp like this, your support is going to trade, your support is going to die. In my opinion, it's probably not worth to even attempt to put resources in trying to save them. You go fast, you get kills. Your ideal goal is that you play so fast and you play so effectively that nobody dies, but the realistic solution is that some people are going to die. You just need to win the fight. That is a lot of like these kind of, I call them, these are violent comps. They are just going at you, but their game plans can be easily interrupted. Now it's harder when there's 3 tanks, right? So we had compositions like this, but in 2-2-2 and 6v6, but they were a lot more well-rounded because you had to have 2 supports. So you might as well put a little more into playing slower, into playing a little more protective. So you put the Brig in there, and instead of another, aggressive tank, you play Diva. So you're playing like a spam hybrid type. You could throw an Ashe in the DPS line. You didn't have to go full dive character because you were playing a little slower. So you have like this spam dive hybrid. This, don't think you do that. I don't think you do that at all. You say this support character just needs to go in there, put the Discord on. I don't care, right? If we're going to win the fight, either we win the fight or we lose the fight. There's no like, oh, push, pull. Nah, it's push. It's go. We're going. That, I think, is the best way to do 3 tank. If you attempted to do a 3 tank that played slow or played like anything else, I just don't think it works. I really don't think it works. Now, this is a dive version, I think there is an alternative here. You could talk about, where are they? It's going to be hard for me. Junker Queen. You could throw in Mauna, right? And then on top of that, you could throw any character that has decent survivability. I think Ramatra could be okay there. And then the DPS, and you could play Sombra Tracer. Nobody's gonna tell you no there. But you could also play something that's like like a Sojourn, help you with that range pressure to keep them out. Other DPS that you could play that could kind of work with that. Well, I'm gonna throw Tracer back in there. It's just easy. Genji could slot in here, and then that support line. I think you could play Juno. You could play Lucio. You could play, you could try Lucia or Zen, but I think speed is really, really important if you're going to play like a rush comp like this. So I would say Lucio probably the best, although I can see a world where Juno could be okay. Lucio, I think, just has, in a solo supporting world, I think Lucio has a better self-survivability. And he can help with the damage and the game plan generally of what these compositions would be looking for. So I think that's fine. And if you lose Lucio, if you're in already, if the fight has broken out, the tanks do have a decent amount of their own self-sustain to make it maybe not as bad of a problem. Maybe it isn't so bad. So that is where I think, like the triple tank compositions have their merit. I think they're very good. I think triple tank is very, very good. I think it's harder to run it with single support, but I think it can be done. In your ranked games, in your ladder quick play games, this is probably not going to happen. I was trying to force this and just like playing the game regularly, and I was just like, I want to go, right? I have 1 support, I have 3 tanks, I'm on Junker Queen, like I want to go. And every time I tried to go, I turned back, nobody's attempting, they're just sitting in the choke. And I'm like, nobody's even contesting you there. Like, come on, we got to get on this backline. We got to put pressure on them. The tanks then turn around, that lets the rest of our team walk in. Now It's tough. It's tough. That's kind of part of it. So that is the triple tank conundrum. Let's talk about solo tank. Now, I don't know if anyone has played a little bit of this game mode yet. Solo tanking feels miserable. Solo tanking feels miserable in Min 1 Max 3. So how do you make solo tanking viable? Well, I do think it is a bit difficult, but it can be done. So how I think the kind of like the easiest thing here that I can think of is like, if we've got 3 DPS, right? We have 4 potential really big DPS outputs, and then you've got supports that have good DPS output. So if the tank is going to be like needing a lot of resources, because I actually think that ironically, the tank needs more resources in solo tanking than the 3 tanks do in triple tanking, on average, because this guy is going to be taking so much damage overall. And so much of this is the front line, right? If the tank falls, the team falls. So there's gonna be a lot of pressure to try and trade the tank. So you need a self-survivable tank, and you need a backline that's gonna be able to help that tank in any way possible. So I've kind of put together this spam comp, right? It's just Sigma plays a little far away. He plays to spam them out. Sojourn grabs an angle. Ashe grabs an angle. Widow pops up randomly because she's Widow. You could replace it with Hanzo to put a little more pressure on the other tanks to try and stop the tank trade a little bit, right? You put a Yari in there. She's got the spam. She's got her own angle. Baptiste is really, really good at keeping Sigma up. In a spam comp, ideally, characters are not taking too much damage. The DPS aren't, so a lot of it can go into Sigma, right? That is kind of like where I've thought about this. I literally, like, I don't know if solo tanking really works, even in Brawl. I think that's too hard. In Dive, I think there is another way you could do this. It's Wrecking Ball. I think Wrecking Ball, or even Hazard, but I think Wrecking Ball in particular, this becomes a little more just, regular ball stuff that we're kind of used to. I'm gonna throw Sombra in there. I'm gonna throw, I see my Zenyatta in there, and then Brig can help protect the Zen. Because Ball is it's a self-sufficient tank, but he doesn't work like the other tanks. He is a lot more, just runs around, does his own thing, so he'll be okay. I'll throw a Pharah in there. You can play Mercy instead of Brig as well. This is the closest thing you're going to get to kill them first with single tank, right? So it's either you play a tank who is super formidable in a composition around protecting that tank, or you play a comp that is like, nobody sees us. Like we're all doing our own thing, right? The backline is survivable, but then you use Discord, and then all of a sudden these 3 DPS and the tank all come together to try to assassinate somebody. I think that's the best way to there's 2 extremes here. But no, I don't think it's gonna work if you try to use if we tried to play just like a regular, even like a Reinhardt. I think that he's gonna get run down too much. Even the DPS that help protect him, like Mei. You can even throw like a Bastion, I guess, to just try to have some kind of pressure towards the enemy team. I just don't think it'd be enough. Even if you have 2 supports, I think you'd be losing out on a lot. Just try and think of it how would a single Reinhardt tank comp function against a triple tank comp? You know what I mean? At what point does protecting Reinhardt come from damage and all that damage is mitigated, right? The protection needs to come from somewhere else. Sigma, it's from himself, and it's from his backline, who is really easy to help keep him up. Ball, there is no protection. It's just we avoid, right? You can't do a solution that is the other way. So that's where I think if you're gonna have single tank, 3 DPS, you have 2 very polar opposite ways to play it. No in between. If you have 3 support with triple tank, honestly, this one is really weird, because you could do Sigma, right? I'm not going to throw them all back up here. You could do a Sigma comp, right? I think that would be fine. Zen, Bap, Ilyari. It's basically just triple DPS. I mean, some of those support characters are DPS, so you could do that. But do you have enough healing resources to keep a regular single tank up? Maybe you do, but are you doing anything with that, right? So let me paint that picture. Even if we play, like, I'm going to play Ram, I'm putting Ram in there just to shake it up, so I don't just put Reinhardt back in. We do Mei, we do, we'll get spicy, we'll do Hanzo, a little bit of poke, right? And then we're going to do Bap, Lucio, and I'm trying to think, like, who could slot in as another support, who would be, like, a really nice addition to a comp like this. Brig as an AoE, more AoE, I think would always work. If we're going to do Brig, maybe we don't do Hanzo, but whatever. Yes, you have the healing value, and I think Brig and like you have two main supports, and I think that's like really key. You're gonna have two supports that need to play the off tank role. I think Mei also plays the off tank role to an extent, but these guys are protecting your tank and helping them out, and then Bap is doing the brunt of the healing, probably not focusing on the tank so much, but focusing on these guys who have to get a little more aggressive and use their knockbacks and everything. And I don't see a world where, like, you could swap out Brig or Lucio if you have three supports with one tank, and you're playing like a brawl style, right? They help prevent the tank from taking damage, and then the Baptiste makes sure the whole team is good. Like, it's all AoE healing coming through, and then these guys just, you know, they do their regular DPS thing about putting pressure on it. And I think that might be the only way that you can make this work. The reason I put Ram here instead of Ryan is that I think Ram, you know, again, I wanted some variety, but Ram also has a little bit more consistent damage without having to, you know, he's not blocking and like shielding and then trying to swing. He's got a little bit more range. I think Nemesis mode gives him more opportunity to punch, not having to just sit there and block. Although he doesn't protect his team very well, which could potentially be a problem. I could see that definitely happening, but I think it's tough. Like, I think solo tanking in general is going to be the toughest possible version to make work, just with how good tanks are, how vital they are. That this, I don't know, like this, it doesn't sit right with me because, again, the AoE healing, like, can you imagine the triple tank with another tank, or sorry, a triple support with another tank, with three tanks? Obviously that's just goats, but you see what I mean? Like, with one tank, is this just too much? Is this just too much healing? Is it overblown where you're just missing out on so much extra value that you should be getting, right? And I struggle to find other supports that would slot in here well and like add something really to the team. So if you can, avoid single tank, but if you can't, I hope there's at least some idea there that there might be a way to make it work. And then we are going to do solo tanking. Now, let's do I say solo tanking, duo tanking, right? So let's do the funniest one out of the way. Let's just throw 3 DPS in there and 1 support. This is, I kind of don't know how to format a team like this, because losing that support, I mean, you could just do the classic, you know, we throw Wrecking Ball in there, we throw, honestly, you could throw Sigma, you could play a little slower because you're going to have more DPS, more angle pressure. Now that I'm saying that, you know, like, let's throw an Ashe in there, wherever she may be. We'll throw Hanzo in there for now, and then we're gonna find it. We'll throw Torb. So, you know, you could play slower, more angles, and then your support here, you know, you do have a pretty self-sustainable front line. You could greed. Maybe you do Ilyari, and you just angle. You have somebody, a different character at every, like, 5 different points in the map, and then Ball goes in and engages. You could do that. You could play very, very risky. You throw the Zenyatta in there, although I probably wouldn't advise that because I think it might be a little too much. But then again, who else are you going to throw in there? You could do Ana. Ana is, again, like, Ana is Zen. If Zen can't survive, you know, she can do a decent job of general idea of what Zen wants to do. She's a little more versatile in that regard. So, like, this could work, although I don't think it would be consistent. You know, I think this is very exploitable. I think you might say, like, the DPS could be exploited. I don't think that's actually the problem. I think this guy is in a really bad spot. If they are able to get onto him, that is going to be an issue because he has really no way to get saved. If he gets surrounded, he's over. There's nothing he can do at that point. And his team, you know, his team doesn't have the resources to save him, but they also don't have a great way to prevent it from happening in the first place, at least not well. So I do think that this is not going to work as well. But if we do triple support to tank, now we're talking. Now we're talking a little more. Now we're talking, you know, now we're talking goats, right? We're talking a little better. Zen, obviously, I think it can be really good. I think Zen is really good into triple tank in general, right? So you don't always have to run Zen. I'm actually going to throw this Baptiste back up there. And then, you know, you just play main tank, off tank. I think that's the best way to do it because support, you can't play like double initiator, in my opinion, with triple support because you just don't get enough DPS, consistent DPS, you know, consistent kill threat. So I would say you play like main tank, off tank, and we'll let Ramatra come back in here and we'll play Zarya, I guess. I don't know. And definitely not Torbjorn DPS. And then the last DPS slot, I think, can, you know, be pretty, like, I would say like a versatile pick, something that can just help in general, just damage anywhere while the tanks are trading in the front line or working on that. The DPS can be off on an angle trying to prevent other angles taken on them because the support line is going to be a little susceptible to that. And I don't think there's, you know, like, I think a diva would do really well of that. If you take the diva out here, she could do that job. DPS just trying to keep the tank away. It kind of depends, right? Kind of the flavor that you want there. But in general, I think this is probably, you know, very, very reliable. I think this is probably much more reliable than 222, right? If you just got this support line, AoE supports, you got the two tanks who are benefiting from it, and a DPS, you know, you could throw like a Mei in here as well, like a Mei or maybe not a Bastion, but like a Mei would also super benefit from wherever she's gone. I've lost her. Yeah, here we go. She would benefit from like all this AoE healing, all this sustain, and then also kind of play that faux off tank role. So you're getting like mini goats, you know what I mean? So I guess like at the end of the day, what is like the crux of the Min 1 Max 3? Well, you need to be aware that probably for the most part in the current balance, tanks are going to be like the thing, right? Tanks are going to be like really, really good. They're going to be really important to have a plan around. And with some of these comps about how you can put so many eggs in one basket, there's a potential that the compositions themselves become a little more linear. Like their comps are around eggs all in one basket. So if you can shut down that game plan, try to force them into a more like not versatile, but like less spiky comp, you know, something that is a little more well-rounded, I guess, that is versatile. But if you can force them onto that, then you can kind of play your game a little more. So I think that there is merit into a lot of those compositions. Like they do have merit there, but at the end of the day, I think more often than not, you're not gonna have people swapping off of 3 tank. You're gonna have teams swapping the pieces of triple tank around more so than like actually forcing them off. So if a comp is naturally a little weak to triple tank, like I think some of those like single support comps are pretty weak to it, because the triple tank comps are just gonna have much more sustain, better in that regard. Like, and then also like maybe the single tank composition as well. Those are gonna be kind of suffering. So In general, I do think that min 1, max 3, it's a fun experiment. I think it's cool to think about this stuff. But you could see I was struggling to try and find something worthwhile for some of these comps when it's like, oh, it's just so easy when you have 3 tanks or you have 2 tanks and 3 supports, you know? It's easy and it's effective because those are where the synergies are at that really, really matter. And I think that's very, very important when you're going in and trying to like build a composition. And they're easier, they're easy to understand. They're typically more brawl comps or comps that look like old Overwatch comps. So they're easy to implement, easy to run, harder to counter because people know what they're doing. A meta is not going to develop in time. We're not going to be able to see some of these more wacky ideas. So in general, if you are playing and you're playing to win, if you're not just playing to like, you know, mess around and try them out, if you're trying to play to win, maybe you're playing pugs, stick to at least 2 tanks and ideally at least 2 supports. But I do think there's some ways you can get around that. Hopefully the ideas have sparked, but I want to hear from you. Do you have any ideas about how some of these compositions can play? I don't know if any of them are particularly terrible. Again, in theory, in balance, it's different, but before you do that, like the video and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. But again, let me know down below. What do you think? What compositions? I didn't talk about like all the tanks or all the supports or something. Maybe there's something that I missed that could really like flip one of those on their head. Again, let me know down below. This was streamed live, twitch.tv/LaneHemingway, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. That is when I'm live. Come in and talk to me, discuss these videos while I film them, and join my Discord down below. Keep up with everything that I do there as well. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching, and please have a good day.